August 1944, France. German High Command was watching in growing panic as Patton's Third Army tore across the countryside. Towns were falling daily. Entire divisions were being encircled. The unstoppable American advance was threatening to collapse the entire German defensive line. They made a desperate decision. Deploy the Tigers. 72 of Germany's most feared heavy tanks, nearly impenetrable, mounting the most powerful gun on any tank in the war, were rushed straight into Patton's path. Each Tiger could destroy multiple American Shermans before being damaged. On paper, they should have stopped Patton cold. What happened instead became a case study in how tactics, coordination, and speed can destroy superior technology. By the time the battle was over, fewer than 10 Tigers survived. The rest were destroyed, abandoned, or captured. And Patton's advance never even slowed down. This is the story of how American determination and superior tactics shattered Germany's elite armor, and why. The myth of invincible Tigers died in the French countryside. If you want to see how Patton destroyed Germany's best weapons, hit subscribe right now. First, you need to understand what made the Panzer VI tank so feared. The Panzer VI Tiger was a monster, 56 tons of steel, armor so thick that most Allied anti-tank weapons bounced off harmlessly from the front. And most terrifying of all, the 88mm gun that could destroy any Allied tank at ranges where Allied tanks couldn't even damage the Tiger. Allied tank crews were terrified of Tigers. A single Tiger could hold up an entire column. American Shermans, the backbone of Patton's army, were outgunned and out-armored. It typically took 4 or 5 Shermans to destroy one Tiger, and the Tigers would usually kill 3 or 4 Shermans before going down. The math was brutal. Tigers won almost every direct engagement. German propaganda made them legendary. Allied soldiers called them invincible. But Tigers had weaknesses. Weaknesses that Patton understood better than most Allied commanders. First, they were slow. Maximum speed on roads was maybe 25 mph, and that was optimistic. Off-road, they were even slower. They couldn't pursue a retreating enemy effectively. Second, they were mechanically unreliable. The Tiger's complex transmission and engine broke down constantly. For every Tiger destroyed in combat, another was abandoned due to mechanical failure. Third, they were fuel hogs. A Tiger got less than 1 mile per gallon. In 1944, Germany was desperately short of fuel. Tigers could run out of gas before they even reached the battlefield. Fourth, and most importantly, Tigers fought best in defensive positions. Hulled down behind BMS, firing at long range, their advantages were overwhelming. But when forced to maneuver, attack, or respond to fast-moving situations, their limitations became critical. The Germans knew all this, but by August 1944, they were desperate. Patton's Third Army was advancing so fast that conventional defenses weren't working. They needed something that could stop American armor. They needed their superweapon. So, they committed nearly a full battalion of Tigers, 72 tanks, to stop Patton's advance. It should have worked. It should have at least slowed him down. It didn't. While other Allied commanders feared Tigers, Patton had developed specific tactics to defeat them. He'd studied German tank doctrine extensively. He knew Tigers were powerful but inflexible. He knew they relied on long-range firepower and heavy armor, and he'd figured out how to neutralize those advantages. Patton's anti-Tiger tactics came down to 5 principles. First, never fight them on their terms. Tigers wanted long-range duels where their superior gun and armor dominated, so don't give them that fight. Use terrain, smoke, and maneuver to close the distance or attack from angles where their armor was weaker. Second, use combined arms. Tigers were nearly invincible against other tanks, but they were vulnerable to artillery, air support, and infantry with anti-tank weapons. Coordinate everything at once. Overwhelmed them with threats from multiple directions. Third, attack their supply lines. Tigers needed constant fuel and ammunition. They were maintenance nightmares. Find their supply dumps, bomb their fuel convoys, force them to move, and they'll break down on their own. Fourth, never stop moving. Tigers were defensive weapons. If you stayed in one place, they'd find you and destroy you at range. But if you kept advancing, kept them off balance, forced them to reposition constantly, their mechanical weaknesses would do half your work for you. Fifth, accept casualties. This was the harsh reality Patton understood that others didn't. Yes, fighting Tigers would cost American tanks and lives, but trying to avoid Tigers cost time. And time gave the Germans room to organize better defenses. Better to take losses and keep moving than to stop and let the Germans prepare. Patton drilled these principles into his commanders relentlessly. Tank commanders weren't allowed to retreat when they encountered Tigers. Artillery officers were trained to respond within minutes to Tiger sightings. Fighter-bomber pilots were given priority for anti-tank missions. The result was that Patton's Third Army didn't just fight Tigers differently than other Allied units, they hunted them. Late August 1944. The exact location is less important than what happened. German intelligence had identified where Patton's forces would advance. They positioned their Tigers in defensive positions along likely routes, hull down behind terrain features, guns covering open areas where American armor would have to cross. It was textbook defensive employment of heavy armor. American tanks would have to advance across open ground. Tigers would destroy them at long range. The advance would stall. The Germans would have bought time to establish a proper defensive line. That's what should have happened. Instead, Patton's reconnaissance units spotted the Tigers before the main American force arrived. Within hours, Patton had reorganized his advance. Multiple columns, different routes, constant movement. When American forces did encounter the Tigers, they didn't try to fight them head-on. They called in artillery, massive amounts of artillery, not to destroy the Tigers. The armor was too thick, but to suppress them, to force the crews to button up, close hatches, lose visibility. While Tigers were being shelled, American tank destroyers moved into flanking positions. Tank destroyers were faster than Shermans and mounted bigger guns specifically designed to kill German armor. They weren't trying to survive a direct fight. They were trying to get side shots where Tiger armor was weaker. Then came the fighter bombers. Patton had arranged for continuous close air support. P-47 Thunderbolts carrying rockets and bombs. They couldn't always destroy Tigers from above, but they could damage tracks, force crews to abandon positions, and most importantly, add to the chaos and psychological pressure. German Tiger crews found themselves under attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Artillery from one side, tank destroyers maneuvering on flanks, aircraft above. And through it all, American Shermans kept advancing, not stopping to fight, but pushing forward to objectives beyond the Tiger positions. This was exactly what Tigers couldn't handle. They were designed for long-range duels, not this kind of coordinated multi-threat. The first Tigers fell not to heroic tank duels, but to mundane vulnerabilities. One Tiger threw a track trying to reposition under artillery fire. Immobilized, the crew abandoned it before American forces even reached it. Another Tiger ran out of fuel. The supply convoy hadn't arrived. Patton's fighter bombers had destroyed it 20 minutes back. The crew tried to tow it with another Tiger. Both broke down. Both were abandoned. 3 Tigers were destroyed by tank destroyers that had flanked their position while the Tigers were engaging Shermans to their front. Side armor penetrated. Ammunition exploded. Catastrophic kills. 2 Tigers were hit by P-47 rockets. One had its track destroyed and was abandoned. The other took a rocket through the engine deck, starting a fire that forced the crew out. And here's the crucial part. All of this happened in less than 6 hours. German commanders had positioned Tigers to hold for days. They lasted hours. Because Patton didn't stop. He didn't pause to consolidate after encountering Tigers. He didn't pull back and plan a careful assault. He called in everything he had. Artillery, air support, tank destroyers, and kept his main force advancing. By nightfall of the first day, over 20 Tigers were destroyed or abandoned. The remaining crews were rattled. They'd expected to dominate the battlefield. Instead, they were being hunted from multiple directions by an enemy that wouldn't stop or slow. Down. German tank commanders sent desperate requests for infantry support, for air cover, for better communication with artillery. But Patton's advance had disrupted German command and control. Requests were delayed or went unanswered. Tigers that were supposed to be the centerpiece of a coordinated defense were instead fighting isolated, unsupported battles. The second day was worse. American forces had learned where Tigers were positioned. Artillery targeted those positions before dawn. Tank destroyers moved into ambush positions during the night. When the Tigers tried to reposition at first light, they were already bracketed. More Tigers fell to mechanical breakdowns. The constant movement, the stress on crews, the lack of proper maintenance facilities. It all took a toll. Tigers that could have fought effectively from prepared positions broke down during movement. By the end of the second day, German commanders realized the Tiger deployment had failed. Not because Tigers were bad, tanks they weren't, but because Patton's tactics and tempo had turned their strengths into liabilities. By the third day, German commanders ordered the surviving Tigers to withdraw. But withdrawing Tigers faced all the same problems that had destroyed them in combat. They were slow. American forces were faster. Tigers trying to retreat were caught by pursuing tank destroyers and destroyed from behind where their armor was weakest. They needed fuel. Supply lines were disrupted. Some Tigers ran out of fuel during the retreat and were blown up by their own crews to prevent capture. They broke down. The mechanical stress of combat and rapid repositioning caused transmission failures, engine problems, track breaks. Disabled Tigers littered the retreat route. And through it all, Patton's forces never let up. American artillery hammered retreat routes. Fighter bombers strafed German columns. Tank destroyers harassed the flanks of any German force trying to establish a rear guard. This was Patton's approach in action. Never let the enemy recover. Never give them time to regroup. Push constantly. Keep the pressure on. Make retreat as costly as defense. One German officer captured during the battle later told interrogators, "We expected a battle. What we got was a pursuit. Your forces never stopped long enough for us to establish a defensive position." That was the genius of Patton's approach. He understood that Tigers were most dangerous when static and prepared. So, he made sure they were never static, never prepared, always reacting, always under pressure. By the time the surviving Tigers managed to withdraw beyond Patton's immediate area of operations, the count was devastating. Of the 72 Tigers committed to stop Patton's advance, fewer than 10 were still operational. The rest destroyed in combat, abandoned due to mechanical failure, captured by American forces, or blown up by their own crews to prevent capture. The road ahead of Patton's Third Army lay wide open. The superweapon that was supposed to stop him hadn't even slowed him down. So, What went wrong? How did Germany's most feared weapon fail so completely? The answer reveals fundamental truths about warfare that go beyond just World War II. Superior technology doesn't guarantee victory. Tigers were better tanks than Shermans in almost every technical specification. But warfare isn't a technical competition. It's about systems, tactics, and execution. Tactics beat specifications. Patton's combined arms approach, coordinating tanks, artillery, air support, and tank destroyers, overwhelmed the Tiger's individual superiority. One Tiger was better than one Sherman, but one Tiger couldn't handle simultaneous threats from artillery, aircraft, and multiple ground units. Speed and tempo matter more than firepower. Tigers could destroy more American tanks per engagement, but Patton's forces engaged, disengaged, and moved so fast that Tigers couldn't leverage their firepower advantage consistently. Logistics determine effectiveness. Tigers needed fuel, ammunition, and maintenance. Patton's advance disrupted German supply lines so thoroughly that many Tigers became useless, not because they were destroyed, but because they couldn't be supported. Moral and psychological factors are decisive. Tiger crews went into battle expecting to dominate. When they found themselves instead being hunted, suppressed, and destroyed in ways they weren't prepared for, their effectiveness dropped dramatically. The fundamental problem was doctrinal. Germany had designed the Tiger for defensive battles, holding ground, covering retreats, counterattacking to restore defensive lines. They were using Tigers in exactly the role they were designed for. But Patton's tempo was so fast that defensive battles never materialized. By the time Tigers were positioned to defend, American forces were already past them, or flanking them, or calling in airstrikes. The battle Germans wanted to fight never happened. This is why Patton succeeded where other Allied commanders struggled against Tigers. Other commanders fought the battle the Tigers were designed for. Methodical advances, tank versus tank duels, set-piece battles. Patton refused to fight that battle. He fought a battle of movement, combined arms, and relentless pressure. A battle where the Tiger's advantages didn't matter, and its weaknesses became fatal. After the battle, American intelligence officers interviewed captured German tank crews. Their assessments were remarkably consistent. They hadn't been defeated by better tanks. American Shermans were still inferior in direct combat. They'd been defeated by better tactics and better coordination. One German tank commander said, "We never fought the same enemy twice. First artillery, then aircraft, then tank destroyers, then infantry. By the time we oriented to one threat, two more appeared. We could not fight effectively when everything was happening at once." That was Patton's doctrine. Everything at once, all the time, never stopping. The destruction of the Tiger Battalion had strategic implications beyond just the tactical defeat. German High Command had committed their best armor to stop Patton, and it had failed completely. This shattered any illusions that superweapons could compensate for American material and tactical advantages. It also reinforced Patton's reputation among German commanders. They already feared his speed and aggression. Now they feared his ability to destroy their best weapons. When German intelligence identified Patton's forces in a sector, commanders knew they couldn't rely on defensive positions or superior equipment. They needed overwhelming numbers, or they needed to retreat. For American forces, the battle proved that Tigers could be beaten. Not easily, not without cost, but consistently if you used proper tactics and maintained aggressive tempo. Tiger crews who'd been terrified of Tigers learned they could win, not through better tanks. The Sherman never became the equal of the Tiger, but through better employment, better coordination, and better leadership. 72 Tigers, Germany's superweapon, rushed to stop Patton's advance. Fewer than 10 survived. This wasn't a miracle. It wasn't luck. It was the result of superior tactics, better coordination, and a commander who understood that speed and pressure could defeat superior technology. The Tigers failed not because they were bad tanks. They were excellent tanks. They failed because they were used in a battle they weren't designed for against a commander who refused to fight on their terms. Patton's lesson is timeless. When facing a superior enemy, don't fight them where they're strong. Change the nature of the battle. Use speed, coordination, and relentless pressure to create situations where their advantages don't matter. The Germans sent their best weapons to stop Patton. What they discovered is that the best weapons in the world don't matter if your enemy won't let you use them effectively. The road ahead lay wide open, and Patton never looked back. What do you think made the difference? American tactics or German mistakes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories about how tactics beat technology, subscribe now. See you next time.